Several big fires are burning across Colorado. Altogether, they've charred more than 100,000 acres. Perhaps the most concerning is the Aspen Acres Fire in southern Colorado. Just within the last couple of hours, we learned it has exploded in size to more than 47,000 acres across Pueblo and Custer counties.
You cry, you pray. It's sorrow, it's sadness, it's so many different emotions that you don't know how to feel. Very numb.
Fire officials warn things will get worse, or they won't get better, right? They'll get worse before they do get better. At this hour, at least 125 buildings have burned in Pueblo County. Another 55 have been destroyed in Custer County. Thanks for joining us tonight at 10 o'clock. I'm Alexandra Lewis.
And I'm Phil Lipoff. As firefighters struggle to get a handle on the Aspen Acres fire, people who live in the burned areas are starting to find out what they've lost. 9 News reporter Rhea Jha talked with a woman whose home was destroyed. Rhea.
Yeah, so years of wildfire risk in Beulah has made insurance for a lot of homeowners either unavailable or unaffordable. And now with hundreds of those families without a home, many of them are trying to figure out if they can afford to rebuild or if they should leave the community they've called home.
We could hear it, we could smell it.
As the Aspen Acres fire moved towards Beulah,
We watched the fire consume Signal Mountain. And it was pretty unreal.
Tara Stosic knew she was watching something she would never forget.
The fire is fierce.
25 years ago, Beulah became more than a town for Tara.
Not only privileged to live in Beulah, not only for the beauty, but for the community. And then our home. We had a beautiful, unique home, and we've had a bear in our house. We've had a fox in our house. The beauty is just unmatched.
Mandatory evacuations forced her out of her home on Monday. And by the next day,
everything's melted. And if it's not melted, it's just drenched in smoke. Our floors are ruined. The walls are ruined. Devastation.
Her home was one of more than 100 buildings destroyed. Now Tara is staying in Pueblo, facing questions she never imagined.
Do we rebuild and do we sell? And then if the math does make sense, do we do it? Because the forest around us, the beauty around us is charred.
She was planning on retiring in 3 years.
My retirement job was going to be volunteering at the Beulah School of Natural Sciences. Well, that's not going to be happening anymore because we have to, fund a whole new lifestyle that we didn't ever count on.
But still, Tara says Beulah is hard to leave behind.
I hope that the town can rebound. I believe it can because it's such a special place.
Officials are emphasizing that people are not allowed back into evacuation zones right now, so some people might not even know what the state of their home is as they wait this out. Rhea Jha, 9 News.
Checking with senior meteorologist Chris Bianchi. You look at the forecast, just no help in sight as far as the weather's concerned.
No, unfortunately, not in terms of rain. I do have a glimmer of good news. It's a small glimmer, but I do have a little glimmer of good news for those hard-hit areas in the mountains. First of all, here in Denver, you may notice some of that smoke. This is mostly from the Gold Mountain fire, though there is a bit of smoke from the Aspen Acres fire, the aforementioned Aspen Acres fire, and the Ferris fires. We're getting a bit of an east wind in Denver that is pulling in some smoke from the south. South Metro, Franktown, Parker have had a few reports of ash falling on cars. That is from the Aspen Acres fire, but again, primarily in Denver right now, we are seeing smoke from the Gold Mountain fire. That is the one that is burning near Ouray. Air quality alert for wildfire smoke and ground ozone will continue into tomorrow. Fire weather warning will continue into tomorrow as well for southern and western Colorado. So a rough go, unfortunately, the last few days. But the reason I've got a little glimmer of good news is that winds will lighten up both tomorrow and Friday. I'll show you that in detail and a look at your 4th of July forecast in just a few minutes.
Chris, thank you. In Ouray County, FEMA has authorized the use of federal funding to help with firefighting costs for the Gold Mountain fire. After starting Saturday, it's burned nearly 15,000 acres near the towns of Ouray and Ridgway. Officials say the fire is threatening more than 200 homes with more than 400 people under evacuation orders. Right now, there is no containment. In Lake County, the Willow fire has burned more than 2,100 acres west of Leadville. Today, emergency crews went door to door in a pre-evacuation zone around the flames. At last check, there is no containment and no cause has been given. There's a bit of good news in the Snyder fire near the border with Utah to tell you about. It's now 49% contained and all evacuations have been lifted. Officials say the heavy smoke being generated by the fire is actually beneficial in this way. It's causing some shade in the area. A community meeting is set for tomorrow night to update people on the ongoing firefight. The National Weather Service is certainly keeping a pretty close eye on what's been happening around the state.
They're using satellite imagery to keep track of things like new fire starts and which direction the smoke they're emitting is headed. 9 News reporter Shalima Maharaj joins us live. Shalima, these images play a big role in the emergency response.
Yeah, that's right, Alex. In fact, NOAA earlier on this year launched a wildfire data portal. And so this basically expanded access to the public when it comes to satellite fire information. It can detect anomalies, heat anomalies specifically, even through clouds as well as smoke. And it's also become a very important tool when it comes to early fire detection.
Well, up until about maybe a week or 10 days ago, it had been pretty quiet.
But if the images in front of him are any indication, the volume is now on full blast.
I mean, usually for us, peak season in this area is usually July, August, but we're seeing an earlier than normal start for sure.
Incident meteorologist Bruno Rodriguez
And you'll be able to see they're quite active.
has his hands full.
Here we're looking at the Gold Mountain Fire by Ouray.
Using satellite technology, the National Weather Service can gauge just how intense a fire is.
When we see these kind of signatures, this is not a fire that you can really directly fight. You need to be very careful with your suppression strategies.
It's that information first responders can use to guide their approach.
That's when first responders really shift their priority to life safety and protection of property.
Two of the most intense fires burning in Colorado right now are the Gold Mountain and Aspen Acres fires.
We've been able to detect all the way down to a 1/4 acre fire with some of these satellite tools.
And they're able to pick up on them quickly.
Really, as long as you've got that intensity of the fire from an initial ignition, within 1 or 2 minutes, you can have a detection with that 1-minute imagery.
And time is precious, especially in this fight.
The earlier you can get people on, the earlier they can develop a plan, potentially evacuate people if needed. So even 1 or 2 minutes can make a massive difference.
Now, we have been hearing from fire departments all across the state urging people, especially ahead of 4th of July celebrations, to be fire wise. For Bruno, that includes reducing negligent starts. And he offers a few examples of what that is. He also says that basically the vast majority of fires are human caused. So he's pointing to things like making sure that your chains are secured if you're towing something with your car. He's also pointing to, even parking your car on dry grass, not a good thing to be doing, but it's not just limited to all of those examples. There's much more. Reporting live, Shalima Maharaj, 9 News.
A man who'd been missing in Arapahoe County since last month has been found dead. Kevin Bailey was last seen leaving the Woodland Estate Senior Living Center on June 12th. Last Thursday, the sheriff's office expanded the search for the 63-year-old Air Force veteran. The next day, crews found a man dead in the creek near the Central Park area. Today, the medical examiner's office positively identified the remains as those of Bailey. No foul play is expected.
The mother of former Denver South and CSU football player Calais Campbell has died, and his brother is accused of killing her. According to a 911 call from a family member, Sear Campbell was diagnosed with schizophrenia, lived in a townhome in Atlanta with his mother, 71-year-old Natil. During the call, one of Natil's other sons asked for a wellness check because he couldn't get inside yesterday afternoon.
Morning, he drove in her car, which is very unusual. He doesn't drive at all. But the neighbor caught her on camera. They drove off in her car, and we can't get in her house. I just tried to jump the window, and he's in there, and he said she left. But the camera footage that my neighbor has shows she never left.
The details of what happened are horrific. A warrant says Campbell stabbed his mother in the neck. The family is asking for privacy as they grieve, writing in part, quote, "We take comfort in knowing she is reunited with our father, her beloved Chuck, and in the arms of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ." Sear Campbell faces charges of murder and aggravated assault, among other things.
Today, Democratic Governor Jared Polis fired the Clemency Board members who urged him not to free Tina Peters, and then revealed the Clemency Board was unanimously opposed. 2 members of the Clemency Board wrote an op-ed for the Denver Post last month, saying the board twice unanimously denied Peters' request for clemency. They also said Polis stepped in front of other applicants who deserved clemency and had exhausted their appellate rights to grant clemency to the election denier. In the governor's letter firing the 2 members, he claimed they had breached confidentiality by sharing the board's votes.
This feels very political. Like I said, this is a time where I feel like politically connected people are getting all of the benefit from our government and from our systems. And Miss Peters was an example of that. And we felt like we had to come forward, really coming forward more in the name of all of the folks who have applied and done such hard work and not been granted clemency.
Our system of government should allow for full discourse to take place, regardless of whether it is in favor or against the government. And it feels a little bit problematic that we're being removed from the board for speaking out.
Peters walked free a month ago and quickly went back to claiming America's elections are rigged.
The Republican primary race for Colorado governor is still too tight to call at this hour, but this afternoon, in the most recent batch of ballots, Ministry Leader Victor Marks pulled ahead of State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer. Marks had an enormous fundraising advantage and the backing of evangelical megachurches. He's up by about 2,000 votes. State law requires a recount when the difference is between the top 2 candidates about a half of 1 percentage point or less. Meantime, there were 2 runaway wins for 2 different Democrats. State Attorney General Phil Weiser defeated Senator Michael Bennet to earn the Democratic nomination for governor, while Democratic Socialist Melat Quiros soundly defeated 15-term Congresswoman Diana DeGette to represent Denver in Congress. Quiros has received criticism over her comments, where she declined to call the firebombing attack in Boulder anti-Semitism. Weiser spoke with our Kyle Clark about potentially talking with Quiros about that.
Jewish lives matter. Karen Diamond's life mattered. You don't put a comma, an and or a but, period. That's the message, and I haven't sat down with her, but when we have a conversation and if this June 1st attack comes up, that's my view.
It seems like that might happen. Quiros later spoke with Kyle, who seemed eager to sit down with Weiser.
You know, at the end of the day, what happened in Boulder was a horrific attack on a group of Jewish people that were peacefully protesting. And we are seeing that the actions of Israel are putting Jewish people at grave danger. And the hate and the anti-Semitism that's rising as a result of it is one that I have every intention of prioritizing and combating. And I really look forward to sitting down with Phil Weiser to figure out how we can work together to combat that hate.
You can watch Kyle's full interviews with both of them on the next YouTube channel and on 9news.com.